So sometimes I can feel really hopeless, but I try to keep focus. Sorry. This isn't just our family. Like, they've destroyed so many people's lives here. They've taken countless children from CMH and thrown them into foster holding from people who just wanted to get a different medical opinion or a second opinion to verify, like, yes, this is what needs to be done, or wow, why are they doing that? There's nothing wrong with parents asking for that, and they're ruining whole families' lives, not just ours.
I'm Jeremy Loffredo for Rebel News at the Children's Mercy Hospital in Kansas City, Missouri. Effectively, the hospital has medically kidnapped a 10-year-old girl because her parents made clear that they were not satisfied with the care she was being given and they wanted a second medical opinion. This is the use and abuse of Evelyn Young. Last month, Jessica Young's 10-year-old daughter Evelyn had swollen legs and a swollen stomach. After temporarily treating her daughter's swelling at home, the swelling returned, this time with a rash and sweating. The Children's Mercy Hospital in Kansas City is a controversial research institution that has effectively kidnapped dozens of kids after considering their parents who question the hospital's treatment decisions or ask for a second medical opinion as unfit to parent. Their latest victim is Jessica Young's 10-year-old daughter Evelyn, who was effectively given to the state of Missouri after Jess made clear she wasn't satisfied with the hospital's protocols. Now Evelyn, like many other victims of Children's Mercy, is on the verge of going into foster care. Please go to SaveEvelyn.com and help us fund the legal battle to return Evelyn to her loving family and take her out of the hands of the state.
June 18th, my husband noticed some swelling in Evelyn's face, and I didn't notice it, but by the 22nd of June, I noticed it, and I was like, oh, that's a little alarming. And so we started giving her like herbal diuretics within like that week. But it would go up and down. Sometimes she'd be pretty puffy. Other times she would have a whole week where she looked pretty normal. And then the last week, it was pretty severe. She was herself. She was, sometimes she'd be like, my belly hurts. She had a couple of days in that last week where she did vomit, but she was herself. She was normal. She was talkative. She was playing with the kids. The night of August 30th, we were tucking the kids into bed, and she had been complaining for a couple of days that her thighs were sweaty. And I would look and I'm like, I see that they're sweaty, but like that's all I could see. But I looked that night of the 30th and I could see like a rash on the inside of her legs.
As any concerned parent would do, Jessica brought Evelyn to the hospital.
I decided to go into a local hospital, but they couldn't find a vein. So they recommended that we take her to Children's Mercy Hospital in Kansas City. And that began this nightmare.
CMH has separated so many families in recent years that a local legislator introduced a bill that would stop the hospital from taking so many children from their parents and putting them into foster care. But at the time, the Youngs did not know this. After arriving at the hospital, the medical staff was confused by Evelyn's condition. She supposedly had nephrotic syndrome, a rare kidney disorder normally only seen in older adults. The hospital began to treat Evelyn with steroids, and within days she was almost back to normal. Evelyn's parents, Jennifer and Justin, were pleased and cautiously optimistic. They asked the hospital when Evelyn could go home, but found it suspiciously difficult to get a straight answer.
My husband asked, how many days in a row would you have to see good labs and improving labs and them being stable that you would feel comfortable like releasing her home? And he said, oh, like a few days. So I'm like, great. And then after 4 days, I was like, awesome. Her labs, they're telling me every morning they're improving. Her vitals are stable. Like everything's going great. She is functional. She's herself. So I asked him and he was like, well, she's going to be here at least another week. And I said, okay, that's really crazy pants because this is changing from the original. You've been saying it rounds every day, like she's only improving and you are, tentatively optimistic or something to that nature. So I'm a little confused why she's improving, but her stay is lengthening. And so I brought that up to a patient advocate even. We're set up to like really take care of her. She just wants to be home. She's miserable. So that was on last Friday. And I was willing to be patient and wait until Monday to go, hey, I've waited double the length of time you said. And then things just horrifyingly changed.
Instead of sending the almost fully recovered 10-year-old home, the research hospital said they'd like to try another drug on her. The drug is called CellCept. Evelyn's mother was taken aback by this decision. Upon research, she saw the drug not only was meant for people recovering from transplants, which her daughter was not, but CellCept had a horrible safety profile, known for causing adverse reactions like swelling, which Evelyn was already being treated for, and also severe vomiting. She presented her concerns to the hospital, but was assured that these reactions were extremely rare.
They started her at it on 8, and then she started vomiting and vomiting and vomiting and vomiting. And they did tell me that could be a side effect, but it was a rare subset of children. I was concerned with the vomiting, but I was not like terrified. And I was already like, Justin, I think this is going to turn for the worst. And she is currently, her vitals are stable and she is non-emergent, and I've been looking up the laws and we have every right to go get her to a second opinion, and I want to do that. So let's start kind of planning that. And then like halfway through the day, I was rubbing her back from when she was vomiting, and she was like, Mom, where are you? And I was right in front of her face. So like CellCept made her blind, but the blindness was actually from the encephalopathy that CellCept caused. So the encephalopathy created like a cascade of really serious effects. And she was unconscious for like 2.5 days just because of the CellCept that I said, something doesn't feel right for my kid, and they completely dismissed me. And then it happened. It is currently suspended on her medical record, but it should say discontinued. They're still like, hey, maybe we can try that again. So I'm really scared for her.
Her parents were upset and frustrated that their daughter, who was recovering just fine, was given this risky medication, especially after they raised their now proven well-grounded concerns. It was at this point that they fully recognized that neither their parental rights nor Evelyn's fragile state of health were being respected. They wanted to bring their daughter to another hospital before Children's Mercy could make things worse. But this doubt and distrust of the hospital was quite literally not allowed.
When we tried to take Evelyn out, I had legal wording written out on a paper, even like memorized, so that I could say like, we do have the right, she's non-emergent, her vitals are stable, so you don't have a right to like claim her. Where we were stationed in the hospital, there's a little boy who needed an armed guard there. And so the guard was there all the time because of that boy. And as soon as he heard we wanted to take her out MA, he stood up from his thing. I was like, yep, this is not going to go well. I know they're not going to let us leave, even though we have a legal right to get her a second opinion. And because her vitals were stable and she was non-emergent, we had a legal right to take her out, not just like file for one and do it online or whatever.
The Young's questioning of Children's Mercy Hospital procedures and the destructive treatment the hospital was giving their daughter was regarded by the hospital officials as disregard for medical professionals and therefore an endangerment to their own daughter, Evelyn. The hospital didn't let the family leave and placed an armed guard in the room.
So guards stood in our way. One even like slammed his foot down into the wheelchair so that we couldn't leave, like with my 10-year-old in the wheelchair. Like, he was the worst. They was like, just give us a minute and we'll like print off the paperwork for you. And I was immediately like, they're getting a social worker. I know they're getting a social worker. Then they told us she can't leave the hospital without her PICC line removed, which is like an IV thing. I was like, well, you've got 2 minutes to take it out and then we're going to take her to the next place. And they're like, we'll get the stuff, blah, blah, blah. But then within just a couple minutes, like, well, we can't take the PICC line out. I'm like, so you're refusing to let us go based on the PICC line, but you're also refusing to take it out. You guys are creeping me the hell out. You haven't listened to us. You have endangered my daughter's life. She's been vomiting for like 13 hours and she's declining in your care, not advancing. We were there, I think, for like almost 2 hours total in the hallway. And at the beginning, there was just 2 guards that came up, but for the brunt of it, there was always 7 minimum and more usually coming in and out. And all of them had guns in holsters. So what do you do in that scenario? Even when they're doing things illegally, what do you do when there's a gun? See, I said like a day before to the doctor, you've got a gun to her head. And now they literally had guns. It wasn't a euphemism for me.
They placed a 12-hour hold on Evelyn. And after 12 hours, she was property of the state of Missouri.
At that point, the doctor had put a 12-hour hold on her. And I didn't quite understand at the time that at the 12-hour hold, then custody would be moved over to the state of Missouri. Just for a second medical opinion when I'm watching them neglect her real medical needs, which I was saying, I have real concerns about this medicine, and they're neglecting to take that seriously, doing it anyways and medically abusing her. All this because they didn't like that I wanted a second medical opinion for her to not be endangered under their care. It's so surreal. It's like a whole narcissistic system. You know, when you deal with a narcissistic person, they create a crazy scenario of abuse. And then when you're like, I'm being abused, this really sucks, I want to get out of this abusive scenario, they're like, you're being hysterical. You're really overreacting to this. You're nuts. Well, that's literally what's happening right now. You just kidnapped my daughter. Of course, I'm sad and angry and confused. And that's pretty normal. I think anybody who had their kid kidnapped in any scenario, but it's not the person having feelings that's crazy. It's the people who created that scenario. A social worker came and sat down with the doctor and said, you know, we want you to understand that the reason Evelyn is going to be in custody is because the doctor here said that Evelyn is a very sick girl and she can only receive treatment here. And I was like, what? Like, this is so surreal. Literally, like, nothing is in our control right now. If she were to be discharged like today, she'd go into foster care, like foster holding in Missouri. She would not come home with us, even though I just wanted a second medical opinion. I'm compliant. I'm not saying no to any of the drugs. I'm just saying I have concerns and I'm scared for the safety of our daughter because of you, like because of the drugs you're doing. And I'm still willing to do it because I know the power you hold over our family if we don't do this. I complied and we still lost our kid because I wanted a second medical opinion. You can't ask for a second medical opinion at CMH. Like, that insults their sense of authority. And so, CPS, this person doesn't love their kid enough. It's terrifying to know they have this kind of power over every single family that walks through this door. And as long as you don't ask questions, as long as you don't, care about your kid enough to have a concern like, oh, this medicine looks a little dangerous, and bring it up, as long as you show that you believe in their system, like, you're safe here, that's cool. But if you have any questions whatsoever, like, your family's in danger in this hospital. We've stressed with them so much, like, the importance of bodily autonomy for our family, but it's not just our family. Like, that's important for us, for everybody to have. And that's how we treat other people. So to come into an environment in which that is literally spit at, it's heartbreaking, it's overwhelming, it's terrifying. I mean, it's terrifying. Johns Hopkins University did a study on foster care kids being sexually assaulted compared to like the general population. And children in foster care were found to be sexually assaulted at 4 times the rate of just being left in your own freaking home. Is my daughter going to become a part of that horrifying statistic? I'm trying to remember there is hope, but some days, is she going to be stuck in foster care because of medical kidnapping? Is she going to be abused in foster care? I don't know the end result. So sometimes I can feel really hopeless, but I try to keep focus. Sorry. This isn't just our family. Like, they've destroyed so many people's lives here. They've taken countless children from CMH and thrown them into foster holding from people who just wanted to get a different medical opinion or a second opinion to verify, like, yes, this is what needs to be done. Or, wow, why are they doing that? There's nothing wrong with parents asking for that. And they're ruining whole families' lives, not just ours, because of ego and pride and financial gain.
We don't yet know why Children's Mercy facilitates the medical kidnapping of so many children. Is it because of ego? Is it because they don't like their authority questioned by concerned parents? Or is it because loving parents are less likely to submit to the research hospital's tests and studies, which are funded by the federal government, while the state would allow them to do whatever they please, because doctors know best? But we do know one thing: it's wrong. So please head to saveevelyn.com, that's saveevelyn.com, to help fund the Youngs' legal battle to get their daughter back. For Rebel News in Kansas City, Missouri, I'm Jeremy Loffredo. If you believe giant research, quote, health institutions should not be working with the government in order to steal children away from loving parents by the way of procedures which are shrouded in secrecy, then help save Evelyn Young at saveevelyn.com. That's saveevelyn.com.